All right, let's talk about the 3 steps to the policy review process. Number 1, what is the approach that you would use for a current and potential client, or a potential client? With your own clients, I think it's quite simple. I know that when I came into the business, I could always answer the objection that people would say, oh, you make a big commission on it. I said, well, yeah, I might, but I also make a big commitment, because in addition to what I get, I'm making a commitment to be there for you when you need me in the future. And that commitment, as we explained to the client, was to make sure that we were there for you as you had changes in your life, that we would get together and review the policies, and that's the approach that I would use if I was starting. I've never done policy reviews as a marketing tool. Today, with an existing client base, I still believe in picking up the phone and calling people as opposed to sending letters. A lot of letters don't get read, but if you have a decent relationship with your client, you call up and say, hey, Bob, this is Alan. It's been some time since we got together. You read the newspapers, Bob. The economy is upside down. Asset values have fallen, and as true as it is, in the real estate world, it's true for the assets held by life insurance companies. And I think that this is a good time that we sit down and review all your policies. Some are not performing the way you and I talked originally. The economy has really affected them. And it's a way, if you've not got back to someone on a policy that's failing, and maybe you should have, it's a good way to get back in and just say, hey, these are the changes as a result of the economy, and push for it that way.
Maybe these people have not been your clients for life insurance, because many of our brokers do other things for their clients. And perhaps you can talk about using this as an added service for your clients in order to open up this subject that you're now going to help them with their life insurance policies as well.
And as Nikel just gave me a signal, we're at 10:28 in California, which means technically we have 2 minutes, and maybe I've been a little bit wordy. For those of you who have to leave us, you can always call me or Bob or one of our account managers, Corey Chan, Marwood Polasek, Nikel Leist, and we can help you with it. If you can stay on, it might be worthwhile. So now we're going to talk about how to approach someone who are just people you know, not people that you've done business with, someone you got a referral from. Again, it's the same approach. Make it a service call. People are always willing to get some help with something. And if you can disturb them by saying what I said before, we all know the economy's upside down. No crystal ball is when it's going to turn around. And all we read about are plunging real estate values, plunges in the stock market. All of those things have affected life insurance companies. And before you and I ever talk about life insurance, let's look at your current policies and make sure that they're performing well and won't go off the books before you do. We find that in some cases. But to me, it's an easy approach. Now, the third area of marketing, and I think it's a big area, I'm sure all of you know attorneys, CPAs, and maybe some trust officers. Let's start at the bottom with trust officers. Most of them don't understand life insurance. Some of the big banks, trust departments, have policies bought 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they haven't looked at them. And guess what? That's their job, to look at those policies. And if the policies fail because they haven't been looked at, the beneficiaries of that trust are going to look to that bank and that trust department to make it good. That's the story that you tell to a trust officer. Look, we can provide you with an objective analysis that will get you off the hook. It'll show that you've done your due diligence. It's done by an outside third party. If at some point we point out a need to change the insurance, of course you have the opportunity to go back to the person who wrote the policies initially. I think they probably should have been doing this themselves. Or in our department, we could also help you with that. CPAs, same thing. CPAs probably have the closest relationships with clients. I think even closer than ours at times. They're seeing them regularly. They overlook this. Life insurance policies on the books. Yeah, okay, well, this was the premium, and here's the cash value to throw into assets. They're not paying attention. They need to get back to their clients. It would be somewhat of a conflict of interest for them, certainly, to do an audit themselves, and then if they're licensed to sell life insurance, here you step in and say, look, we're a disinterested third party to the CPA, and it's the same pitch again. We'll come back with an objective analysis. If there's some changes that need to be made, we will point those changes out to you. If you would like us to help with your client, we'll be happy to do that. If you would prefer the client's original insurance agent, and I'm not sure you would because they should have done this in the first place, we can help you with that, but there's no obligation. You just kind of sneak up on the dipper to get a drink. And lastly, attorneys, and it isn't any different really with attorneys, to talk to them about what's going on. So remember that a policy review is not just a sales tool. It's a valuable client service. And I strongly believe if you keep client service first and foremost, the sales will follow. Things change. Ask your client, have the beneficiaries, are there needs to be change there?
Yeah, beneficiary designations are critically important here. I mean, a life insurance policy is often one of the major assets that a person owns, and therefore the beneficiary designation is really the distribution of that asset as part of an estate. And so it needs a lot of care, and particularly with minor children, as I mentioned before. So we can talk about this at other times, but beneficiary designations are absolutely critical.
When you talk about policy ownership, if they don't have a big estate, then they probably should retain ownership. There's no reason to move it out, especially when it looks like, married couples will have a total of $7 million in initial exemption that will gradually grow through the years. Single people will have $3.5 million. It's a little bit more challenging with assets going down, but their estate may have grown. They may have retained ownership in it. And even if they have a living trust, maybe it would be a good idea to make the beneficiary designation the living trust if it's not already, because then it will follow the same direction that all of their other assets follow.
Ownership is really critical if you have a large estate, because as soon as you get over the exemption amount, you're at a 45% estate tax rate. And by the way, even though we don't know for sure where estate taxes are going, the general consensus is that the $3.5 million exemption will hold and the 45% rate will hold. So that if you sell $1 million policy, for example, and it's going to be included in the estate, you're really only selling a $550,000 policy because the rest of it will go to taxes. So it's a good time if you have people who have enough net worth to talk about this and to discuss perhaps using an irrevocable trust as the owner.
Now, all of what we've said is well and good, but your time is best spent calling clients, opening cases. Your time is not best spent putting together policy reviews. Even if you have a staff person, they should be supporting you in your sales efforts, and that's where we think Pravada makes a difference to make your life easy. It's kind of like our tagline. If you collect the right amount of information, what we really need, you can get that information to us. We will produce the policy review for you. We will either add our commentary or allow you to on the result that you want to have in it. It can also be done subject to your letterhead with a disclaimer at the bottom that it was powered by Pravada. So the information is really important, and on this screen now you get a brief idea of what we need. Obviously the client summary, certainly we were all field underwriters one day, or for those of us who've been in the business a long time, and what that implied was we tried to get additional information for the underwriting process. I think that's gone a little bit today. I think it's important as part of this to say to people, look, since you bought these policies, have there been any changes in your health? Because that could certainly drive a recommendation later on. Down at the bottom of the client summary, we have a provision for current state of health and prescriptions, because if we get prescriptions, we can really do a quick underwriting just from those alone. Then we need the summaries of the policies. We also need authorizations. If you're the writing agent or the servicing agent, then it's simple enough, because we need a current sales illustration for you to go get it. You know, you go back to the carrier, you're on their list, and you get it. If you're not the original writing agent, then it becomes a bit of a problem, because what I found when I was in personal production, the carrier would try to stonewall it a little bit. They'd take their time. They'd say we can only send it to the insured, or they'd send it to one of their producers, even if that producer didn't write the policy, to try to get them involved. We do run into that. We certainly can help you with that, because if you get an authorization signed for us to get that information, we'll be happy to write to the carriers and do it in such a way that they're not threatened by replacement, even though that may happen. As far as what we really need to see, we need a current illustration of the policy just as it is. Whatever the payment is, that's the way we need to see it. If the policy is going to fail before age 100, we need you to get one more illustration that tells us what the premium would have to be changed to get to 100 with $1,000 of cash value. We're not going to 121, because in talking to underwriters at actuaries at two different companies, they said that the number of people they expect to live past age 100 is negligible, and they really couldn't provide us with any technical information. That may be different, but we think age 100 is certainly good enough to get there. When you get the signed authorization forms, we want 2 copies. Again, the original sales illustration, if you have it, if the client has it and it wasn't your client, if they kept it in their file, it would be great, because if the policy is different today than it was then we can show what's going on with that. And also the policy information page, which I think would be more the application page.
Well, no, sometimes the page that gives all of the details of the original policy, and maybe it's like a status report of the current policy.
So, you know, to start summing this up, you find the customer, we'll do the work. We'll customize the proposal for you. We'll do it in a timely fashion. That doesn't mean we can do it overnight. It depends on how much information we have. It depends on the quality of the information. You can't believe the number of applications that we see here. That we scrub every application. The number of applications that we get that don't contain all of the information required to underwrite a case. It's important to get the information here, and it gets back to that old GEICO thing, garbage in, garbage out. The better your information, the more quality and viability in this particular review. So I don't really think at this point we need to go on with it. There's a summary of the personal policy review. There's an evaluation of alternatives that we will provide. And at the end of the day, in partnership with you in partnership with your client or prospect, we can achieve a positive result for everybody. Even if a sale's not made, it positions you as a trusted advisor with a client or prospect.